Hello, hello, hello. Once again, it's Willie Cartwright from Save to Sane joining you today, this evening. Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are. I am happy to be with you again. It's been a couple of weeks as we do this every other Thursday now, 6 o'clock, trying to keep it consistent. Um, Now that I mention that, and I'll mention this again toward the end, I think I may have to move it to Wednesday, just for one day. The next meeting I think might end up being on a Wednesday. I have to check my schedule. Those of you know I'm in school, so this is there are things that come up regarding school and classes. But for the most part, we're going to be meeting every other Thursday, unless it's a holiday or around holiday period. And I'll let you guys know beforehand if it's a holiday or I need to take some time away. But for now, every other Thursday, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Glad to have you guys with us. Let me know who's with me today. Say hello, put a comment into the chat, saying, "Hey, let me know that you're here and where you're from." Invite your friends to join and take a listen, whether they are followers, believers, on a journey, have questions, flat out agnostic or atheist, or devout in their faith, whatever their faith is. So I want to, what I'm going to do from now on is, if I can, as soon as I can get it rigged up, I'm going to play maybe some music for a couple of minutes when we start so that everyone can come on and get on and before we fully get started because I think what we have to say is extremely important and I want everyone to have an opportunity to hear the entire if you're live if you're coming on with me live I want you to have an opportunity to hear the entire broadcast and participate and have comments and questions, but again, those of you who are out there, say hello. Let me know who's here. I plan for this conversation today to be interactive, at least from a standpoint of comments. I want to get your comments and your input, and we want to address those comments and inputs. Those of you who know me know how I do this. I try to make sure that I hit up all of the comments and the inputs as we go by because I think it's important. I think those are extremely important. So let me get started the way I always start, which is again be, sending first of all send hello to Taisha Essex. She's out there in the world somewhere, in the internet world somewhere. She as much as anyone is responsible for me being on this platform. So always I'm in appreciation of her. As you guys know, she joins us from time to time. Recently, she's been taking care of her new baby. So, shouts out to her and the mister. We hope all is well with you, the mister, and the baby. Hopefully, you'll join us soon, maybe even today. Not sure if she's going to be able to join today, but we'll get her soon on here live and she'll give us an update on what's going on with her. But I'd like to say thank you to her as always um, for her pushing me to get out here and helping me to get this platform going. Secondly, I would like to say thank you and appreciate as a shout out to my lovely wife, Salima, who is my number one supporter, my number one fan. She's also sort of my technical person. She does all the technical stuff. But she also gives me some good ideas from time to time as well. So but thank you to my wife Salima for being a wonderful, supportive, and smart person that she is. So I love you and I appreciate it. So yeah, so those two individuals, as much as anyone else, is responsible for me being on this platform and pushing this information out to you guys. Texas Goddess, thank you for joining. What's going on? Glad to have you with us today. Are you in Texas? Or what's going on? How's the weather in Texas? You guys get a little bit of everything. And then if you are in Texas, what part of Texas are you in? If you are in Texas, or maybe you're just from Texas. Um, So today's well, let me I like to, whenever I have an opportunity, I like to start off with something that may or may not be related to the to today's subject, but something that is related to the overall theme of this page. And so just to tell you a quick story. Recently, over the Christmas holidays, I had a good friend of mine who is Sikh. That's his faith. He's Sikh is his faith. We're good friends, been friends for the better part of about 15 years. And unfortunately, his young son in early 20s died in a tragic car accident. Uh, um, yeah, and so he was dealing with that, and that happened over the holidays. I spoke with him in person recently, I think last Friday, and he asked me a question. He's familiar with what I do and my position on religion, and what I do. He asked me if I believed in reincarnation, and I told him, I don't know. I'm up in the air. I really don't have any really thoughts about it whatsoever. His point, and so he said that I asked him. I said, "Well, in the Sikh faith, don't you guys believe in reincarnation?" He said, "Yeah." He said, I talked to my sister. We talked about reincarnation, and he was speaking about seeing his son again. But he said his question was, in what form would he see his son, if ever? If his son is going to be reincarnated in the form of something else, someone else, another animal, or whatever, how would he ever see his son again? Or if he would see his son again? And so we talked for a minute. I didn't have any real answers for him, but it just got me to thinking that religion plays such a huge part in our life. For most of us, especially those of us who are religious, and even those of us who used to be religious, we still there's the remnants of being part of a faith and a religion that takes years, if ever, us getting over it, and we find ourselves believing some things or talking about some things or reliving some things because it's like second nature to us. But this question was intriguing. Here's a guy who lost his son, and now he is wondering if he will ever get a chance to see his son again in the afterlife. So, does he believe in the afterlife? Does the afterlife exist? What are the chances of him seeing his son? And it just made me think about how prevalent religion is and the role that religion plays in all our lives, regardless of your faith, um, and how we think about things, how our mind works, how we may change our outlook about certain things regarding our faith when something happens to us, when something tragic happens to us. In this situation here, someone who didn't believe in the who doesn't believe in the Christian tradition of you're dying and you're going to heaven, and you know what they tell us, you're going to see your parents again, your loved ones again. Here's someone that didn't believe in that based on his faith, just believed in reincarnation. But from what I can gather, was kind of hoping that the Christian version of "We'll see our loved ones again" existed, was real. He kind of believed that, he hoped that maybe that was the deal. And then that brings into other questions as to, well, would that happen to you if you're a Christian? If you're Sikh, you're not a Christian. How does that work, and so forth and so on? Or maybe he was thinking that it's just something, being able to see your loved ones again in the afterlife is something that transcends religions. And is anybody who believes that that type of thing can happen regardless of your faith or how you believe. So there's a multitude of questions in that, but that's just something that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention. And if you had any comments or questions about anything like that, or had an experience like that, it was something I just wanted to share before we really get started into what we're going to talk about today. OG, what's going on? Glad to have you. Appreciate it. So today I wanted to talk about Black and Godless. Um, I came up with that because I kind of want to do another book one day, and tentatively I want to title it Black and Godless. But now that I'm putting it out there, someone is probably going to write a book about that with that title. So I haven't had it. I haven't got it trademarked or anything, but maybe I get some T-shirts that said "Black and Godless" on it. But what I wanted to do today, with the help of you guys, I wanted to explore and expound upon those of us who are living our lives without the belief of a God or the presence of a God being a major factor in our lives, especially those of us who are African American, because who are African American, because we know historically, and there's empirical evidence that will point to the fact that we are the most devout demographic, at least in this country and maybe in the world. But we are extremely devout, and our belief in God. When I say our, I mean collectively as a people. Our collective belief in God is it transcends every being of us, every part of our life, and everything that we do, our walk, the way we see things, everything whatsoever. And so I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation with you guys about what is it like being an African American and being a non-believer, especially in this country. And for me, I'm in the Bible Belt. I'm in Georgia, which is in the Bible Belt, so it adds a little bit more emphasis on it as well. So I wanted to discuss that. What reason why I came up with this topic? Those of you know that I'm in school working on a master's in religious studies. And whenever I tell people that, especially African Americans, it's kind of a pause and then maybe a little laughter and then why and then what's the purpose. And we've had this discussion before on it. So really brief, just because I'm interested in the subject and I want to teach it from a secular standpoint. And so we're working on that now and learning some things. Uh, however, I've decided recently what I want that work to really be about. I mean, that there's religious studies and there's some other things, and so I'm in the process. In the next couple of weeks, I will be talking with, speaking with a couple of anthropologists, because what I'm interested in is cultural anthropology, in relationship with religion and how it affects us. And those of you who don't know what anthropology is, it's basically the study of humanity, how we move, everything about us, human, cultural, religion, physical, biological, just everything about humanity, the study of humanity. And so for me, human culture, especially for us as African Americans, when you combine that culture, our culture, with religion and what religion does to us and our culture, how we operate, how we move in that, um, we that's something that I want to study and have the rest of my life's work be centered around. So so I wanted to so that's what we're doing to that's kind of my direction in school. And so I wanted to kind of talk today about what does that look like us, our culture, and those of us who are at a minimum questioning our faith and religion, and to the extreme of us who are completely leaving it, or leaving any faith whatsoever, and everything in between. We just wanted to have a discussion about that today. OG said, Dr. Henry Clark said black people will out pope the Pope. Absolutely. You're right. And that just, again, that just shows you our devoutness to, in particular, Christianity, but then even to Islam. Those of us who are Muslim, the devoutness is still the same. We're just overly devout to a supreme, um, supernatural deity or being. That's just what it comes down to. So absolutely. Um, and so, am I buffering? Are you guys able to hear me? Hopefully, I think my internet connection is good. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Maybe I need to hold the mic here. So let me know if you guys can hear me, and maybe I'm speaking sort of softly or whatever. But I'll kind of speak up, and hopefully we won't get the buffering. Um, let me know, Texas Goddess or OG, if it's still buffering, or anybody else who's out there trying to listen. So I wanted to again talk about the subject about black and godless. What is it? What is your life like? Those of you who are not Christian or not Islam, or don't practice any kind of religious faith, or don't believe in the current gods that we have. Thank you, Texas Goddess. How are you? How are you moving? How's your life? How are things with you? How do your friends treat you? How do you approach things, simple things like Thanksgiving dinner with family members who may be still religious. Do you participate in the prayer, the grace? Do you still say your grace? It took me years to stop saying grace over my food, even after I left. I call myself leaving religion, or when I officially left religion in 2015. Um, how does that work? What about friends that know that you are no longer believers, or at least questioning? How do they treat you? Has any of those relationships changed? So we're going to get into all of that. But first, I wanted to read you just some stats, or make you aware of stats. And when I read stats to you, because I am in academia, I try to have a source and a citation for everything that I bring to you. This is a lot of this information I'm telling you right now is from a Pew Research. Some of it is from a Pew Research study. The rest of it is from an American. Most of it's from an American Enterprise Institute study on March 24th, 2022. Um, so some of the stats, some of the information is just overall Generation Z. Um, 39% of people who were raised evangelical Protestant are now no longer affiliated with any church whatsoever. And this is relevant to the subject matter we're talking about today. 9% of Black Generation Z uh, and millennials are what we call unaffiliated, which means that they don't attend any church whatsoever. I mean, they're not a member of any religious organization whatsoever. That might not sound like a lot, but you're talking about a demographic again in African Americans who maybe a generation before my generation, which would be before the millennials, which would be Generation X. Well over 95% of us were somehow affiliated with a religious a system. Here's one of the more, I guess, surprising stats. Half of all millennials and Generation Z people seldom or never attend church. Almost half of millennials and Generation Z seldom or never attend church. Um, 51% of Black women are members of a church or religion. Just 51%. That sounds like a lot, but that's down, significantly down. And here's another one that was a little bit surprising to me, that the number was this low. Not surprising that it was lower than women, but I was a little bit surprised that it was this low. 35% of men, of Black men, only 35% of Black men attend church on a regular basis. So those guys out there, and that's always we've always been behind women as far as church attendance. I remember growing up, my stepfather never went to church. My mother would beg him, and he would never go to church. So it was always my mother and her dragging my sister and I to church, and my stepfather would, he would, I mean, I guess as a as a present to her, he would go on Christmas and Easter, maybe, but that was really about it. So so that was it. So I wanted to throw those stats out there because those stats are important and relevant as to why we're talking about what we're talking about. And so those stats are important because it shows that there is a that we're going in a direction where the younger generations, millennials, Generation Z, and those under Generation Z are leaving the church in droves. I mean, they are leaving the church, and they are leaving. Um, they are not only leaving the church, but a lot of them are leaving religion altogether. But it starts with the church, and so they're going to face a life different than what my generation, again, Generation X, and those before me, which would be baby boomers, and I think what's before baby boomers, the silent generation, I think they call them, where church and religion and God was a major, major, major part of their life. It was part of every aspect of their life, socially, where they went to mingle with each other, where they met up, during the civil rights era, where things happened and plans were made. A lot of our civil rights leaders came out of the church in the '60s, in the '50s and '60s. Everything that we did centered around the church. And so now we're getting into some generations where churches is not only it's not relevant, but it's missing in a lot of their lives. And along with church, also is the belief in God, or at least so I think that the stage is for a lot of these young people. a lot of these young people still believing in God. There's still there are a significant number of those, relatively speaking, that don't believe in a God at all. But then you have the other group who I would loosely call deists, meaning that they believe that there's a higher power out there that may have created us, but after that, there's nothing else. That entity is not interfering with our lives on a daily basis. And so I think that's where a lot of our young people, African Americans, are going. This direction they're going in, or they are finding themselves part of other spiritual practices, whether it be African spirituality or other spiritual practices from the African uh, diaspora, or they're tinkering with other belief systems. So that's important. So it's important to understand. So as a society, as a culture, our community, what's the future for us? Where do we go when the belief in the Abrahamic God and the church attendance is not the major role for us, is not major in our life? And those of us who are experiencing it now, like myself and some others, what has our life been like since we've not been members of the church or have denounced religion or Christianity the way I did? And so we can address that. Texas God has said, before I go to bed, I still pray or say an affirmation. I acknowledge the day and say something like, I'm so thankful. This was a beautiful day. Thank you, Texas God. That's, yeah. So I'll tell you, so again, 2015 is when I sort of denounced Christianity. So I'm done with Christianity, a religion. But for a while, I still did meditation, and I still do meditate from time to time. Not as much as I did a few years ago, but I still do it from time to time. I will do that, and then what? But for me, meditation is more looking inward. It's a sort of a stress reliever. It's looking inward. It's reminiscing on my day. It's thinking about what I can do to be a better person. So that's when I meditate. That's what I'm meditating on. I am grateful. I am grateful, not necessarily to a deity per se. Like today, I think I walked around and was just sort of thankful to what I call the source. And the source could be, for me, could be anything. It could be I'm not saying it could be anything, but for me, the source is not anything in particular. It's not a deity or a god. It is just whatever is responsible for me having the great life that I have, whether that be something internal, whether that be something that I don't know the name of, something that may or may not exist, whatever it is. For me, I was just saying thankful, and I may be like Snoop, maybe thank you to myself, but whatever it is in me, or whatever it is around me, external, internal to me, that is, um, along with myself, they're responsible for the goodness and the good things in my life. Then that is it. And we can phrase it how we want to phrase it. Again, I make no bones about it. I do not believe in the traditional deities or traditional gods that we have created as human beings. The Abrahamic God, I don't. There's not enough evidence or proof for me to believe in that God. I do leave open the options that there is something out there that exists beyond me, because I'm a firm believer that we know probably less than 1% of what's going on in the world outside of us, and that as we evolve as a species over thousands and millions of years, things will be completely different. And so I leave open those options. I don't know what's going on out there, but I definitely have not seen enough information to make me believe in the traditional gods that we have created as a human species. Um, so yeah, I also wanted to. So for me, let me just tell you a little bit about what I have experienced since leaving the church or denouncing religion. Keep in mind, I am Generation X, and I come from a community where everybody believed, everybody, and if you didn't believe, you kept it to yourself. So I didn't know anybody growing up that wasn't a believer, or didn't, at least didn't say that they believed in. So when I made a decision and then became public with it, um, people, it was shocking to most people. It was shocking, I think, in the sense that here is a black man raised in the 70s and 80s, My mother was a minister a few years before she passed. The last for probably the last 10 years of her life, but she had always, at least for most of her life, been extremely devout. My whole family were believers. I didn't know anybody that wasn't a believer. So here I am coming, in my 40s and 50s saying, in my 40s saying, guess what? I'm no longer believing in what I don't believe in is God. So it was shocking that someone actually didn't believe in God from Alabama, raised in the 70s and 80s. Secondly, it was shocking that someone not only did I not believe, but I was very vocal and open about my disbelief. And I think thirdly, I wasn't afraid to um, I would say loosely, challenge the Christian beliefs or religious beliefs of others, especially, for instance, particularly the Christian beliefs. And so I think those three things, I think people around me felt it made a lot of people uncomfortable. And so I lost some friends. I mean, I lost people. I literally had people say, um, I'm no longer, we're not cool. We're no longer friends, or unfriend me on Facebook. I guess that's the way that people tell you they're not friends. But I've literally had people to send my message say, we're good. I'm no longer, or I've seen people who I've been knowing for years and years. I mean, I've been knowing some of these people for decades, and they no longer follow me or don't have anything to say to me. And then I had those who pushed back and openly challenged me, and I was fine with that. Who were really disgusted in some of the things that I had to say. Hello, Media Engagement Solutions. What's going on? We are good here. We are talking about Black and Godless. What is our life like as we either completely denounce or no longer follow any religion or any deity, or in the process of just having a journey, because things around us change as when we make that decision. And so I'm in the process of talking about some of my experiences. So yeah, so I had people who openly said, "No, I'm no longer. I can't. I'm done with you." Um, I've had people who I hadn't literally spoken with in 25, 30 years. Um, People were close to me. Some of these people, I mean, I've had fraternity brothers, I mean, chapter brothers, those of you who are familiar with fraternities and sororities. So I had brothers that I literally pledged with, so which means that we were pretty close in college. I've had them to send me DMs saying, matter of fact, I just had one recently sent me a DM because those of you who don't follow me on Facebook, you can follow me. It's WC O'Neill, WC and then ONEAL. So every Sunday I post what I entitle it "Good Morning Saints," and it's usually a meme or some information of contradicting. People would say that it's challenging Christianity. And so, if I can remember correctly, this most recent one, this past Sunday, had to do with um, maybe Noah's Ark, or something like that. And anyway, someone was not happy that I had posted that, challenging their beliefs. And this person, who's a friend of mine, a fraternity brother, sent me a DM, and it started off with, "Hey, bruh, why are you hating on Christianity?" Something to that extent. And then I responded, "What you consider hating, I consider it giving information." And then once I completed my comments to him about why I was doing what I was doing, he was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I can see that." And here's the ironic part. He's a Christian now, but he used to be agnostic, or at least that's what he told me. And I asked him, I said, "Well, what made you go back after being agnostic? What made you go back to being a believer?" And he said, "Well, it's a long story. We'll have to sit it down sometime and talk about it." That's fine. I have more people that go the opposite way. So yeah, so I've lost friends. I had one guy who just literally on social media just totally just he didn't really cuss me out, but it was pretty. You could tell he was really irate, and I get a lot of irate people on my Facebook posts and my. It's funny because and here's the one thing. So we talked about the generations earlier, the different generations, right? Um, you can see the difference between Facebook and say Instagram. When I post something on Facebook that's challenging Christianity, I get a lot of pushback. I get hate mail. I get people who are literally wishing that I burn in hell, right? When I post it, and it goes directly to Instagram. Whenever I post them on Sunday mornings, when I post something on Facebook, um, Instagram, I get likes, and I get people who are like, I agree with you. They start following me. Uh, it's just a totally, completely different response, and I like to I believe that that is because there's different generations on each social media platform. I think all those old people or older people are on Facebook because you get on Facebook, and that's why I don't even like Facebook anymore. But you get on Facebook and you hear about everybody's dying and everybody's sick and pray for this and pray for that. So I spend less time on Facebook, as less time as possible. But Instagram, I think, are for younger people who are a little bit more astute, who do a little bit more reading, who are open, who may openly be challenging their faith or their belief system or the belief systems of their parents or grandparents. So it's cool. Neo X, what's happening? Neo X, yo, this is my girl right here. Neo, what's going on? Glad to have you join us today. Peace with you. Thank you so much for the video, Neo. We sent us some comments or questions, but we're talking about black and godless. What it's like being out there and confessing that you're not a believer, at least in the traditional sense, a believer in Abrahamic God. What has happened? Has been pushback from family, friends? What about what anything happened on your job or whatever? Um, I know I saw I have a well she was a friend, an acquaintance now. Um, she's an attorney. When she moved down south from up north, she was huge in the atheist um, sphere, I guess, right? The black atheist sphere. She was well known and popular. When I met her, she had sort of dialed back. And when I sort of got on the kick, when I got into space and started doing this stuff on podcasts, we had a conversation, and she told me that because I ran across an old video that she had done years and years ago. She was being interviewed by somebody. I mean, this is like 10, 12 years ago. This is a long time ago. And I came by through it by accident. Um, and I asked her about it. She said, "Well, I had to pull back because being down south, if people found out that I was an atheist, she felt that it would hamper her business, and she's an attorney, that it would preclude her from getting business." And so these are some of the type of things that we talk about. Again, why I do what I do is because one of the reasons is because I want people to understand that there is nothing any different about a person who's not a believer than people who are believers, except for the fact that we just don't believe in God. But our character is still the same, our abilities are still the same. Nothing changes, and so to be treated like leopards, I like to use a Bible term, to be treated like leopards because we no longer believe is crazy. Um, yeah, but so people, those of us who are non-believers, we have to move carefully, especially those of us who are withholding to value our family's opinion or have a job where clients are openly believers, and you feel that they may not work with you, or you may no longer have a job because of your disbelief. And I perfectly understand that. As a matter of fact, let me be the mouthpiece, because I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where that's not an issue for me. My family understands me. They just kind of like, well, whatever, that's him. I'm one of these people in a family situation where um, uh, they know, and they have known for decades, that their opinion of me doesn't matter. I've always done my own thing, and that's what I'm known for, and so it's not an issue. I'm sort of, this is sort of, I don't want to, I want to say revered, but I'm sort of looked up to by a lot of people in my family. Like, I'm the first in my family to go to college, da 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 the whole 9 yards. So I kind of got that going too. So I could kind of get away with stuff, or they'll just say, he's crazy or whatever. But no real pushback. I do hear the comments. They do. If I post something, like again, I told you guys, I post stuff on Sunday mornings, challenging Christianity, and I entitled it "Good Morning Saints." um, if I post something that they really, really get offended by, my sister and a couple of aunts may send me a message like, "Yo, that hit below the belt, or you might have gone too far." I don't take it down. I kind of laugh and keep going. But yeah. Um, let's see. Neil X said, "I lost some friends and family. I think I'm crazy." Yep, absolutely. Adrian Teller, what's going on? Glad to have you on deck. Peace out. Peace to you too. Appreciate it. Neo, let's talk about that. They think we're crazy. So, when you are out of it, and you're able to look at it objectively, and you're able to say, so I'm the crazy one because I don't believe in this supernatural magical deity that there is zero, absolutely zero proof of, zero empirical evidence of. I'm the one crazy, but you are the one who believes um, in talking snakes and talking donkeys and people being, raising from the dead, and people walking on water and turning water into wine, and people flying on horses, and all of that. But I'm the one that's crazy. So that's an objective approach that you're able to see it from when you're out of it. You can't see the forest for the trees. So when I was in it, and I'm sure like a lot of you when you were in it, um, it wasn't that I wasn't like this person who was like, yeah, that's the truth, absolutely, and I was gung ho. But I was one of these persons, people who were kind of apathetic to it. Like it didn't, I didn't challenge it. It sounded crazy, but then it was like, yeah, but it's the Bible, it's God, so He can do anything. I'm fine, whatever. Um, but it wasn't until I got out of it till I really looked back. And even now, it's funny. I was talking to a friend, and we talked about church. I said, you know what? I said I may be able to, and I think this person is a non-believer too, and but used to be. And we talked. I said, I could go to a church to hear the music, right? I could. I mean, the music was. I'm not saying I missed the music. I could turn on a station, radio station, and the music, but the music was. I like the music, at least a lot of it, especially the more upbeat. I didn't like the the dead the music made me feel like I was at a funeral, but the more upbeat gospel music I did like. But what I cannot tolerate, and it would be hard. I mean, almost impossible. Next to impossible for me to do is to sit through a sermon. There is no way I can sit through sit through a sermon. That's almost a tongue twister. Sit through a sermon and listen to a pastor spout inconsistencies and inaccuracies and just straight lies, stuff that I know for a fact is not true. So there's no way that I can sit through a sermon. That'd be next to impossible for me to do, right? So yeah. So again, Neo, we're not the crazy ones. And I don't want to say that they're the crazy ones because I know so many people that I love with all of my heart and respect and revere so much who are devout believers. And so I'm hesitant to say that they are crazy because I really love these people and have tremendous amount of respect for these people. But I understand, where it's coming from. But I'm not crazy, and you're not crazy either, Neo. Texas God is saying, I think one main side effect of leaving religion is the loss of community. This is huge as church provided close support systems. Many of us deal with more isolation, mental health issues, and depression. Absolutely, Texas God is that. As a matter of fact, so last semester I wrote a paper on black community and secularism. I wrote two papers, but in one paper in particular, I kind of touched on why is it so difficult for African Americans to leave the church? And one of the things I touched on was the social aspect of it, the community aspect of it. I mean, we are in in the macro sense as human beings, we are certainly a communal people. But more specifically, us as African Americans, historically, our ancestral homes in Africa, we are a very much a communal society of people. We love community. We need community. We strive. We strive on community. We have to have community. So yes, absolutely, that is a very difficult part of it. That is one of the cons, one of the bad things, one of the downfalls of leaving it. One of the things that I hope to work on in future work is there a replacement for that aspect of it? Is that what can we do in our community to replace the communal and social aspect of what the church gave us? Um, and so there are some possible. I mean, there are organizations, there are book clubs, but here's the thing though, nothing is as efficient and as consistent as the church in our communities. I mean, we will attend church 3, 4, in some cases. I mean, some people even 5 days a week consistently. And that is the only thing that I've seen us as a community do that consistently on a weekly basis, right? And so on top of that, those of us, even those of us who are not believers, we still have a lot of friends who are believers, and those friends are in the church. They're at church a lot. And so, if we want to see those individuals and spend time with those individuals, sometimes the church is the best place for us to meet them. So we have that. That's another aspect of it. My wife and I the other day was talking about how many friends we have. I think we've had the discussion before. Maybe it wasn't that recent, but we've had the discussion before about how many of our friends are or who don't attend church. And we're fortunate. We managed to come across a lot of people, at least significant enough for us. Our circle of friends, where many, almost all of them, don't attend church. We have a couple of that do, but for the most part, they don't attend church on a regular basis, and several of them are flat out like agnostic or atheists, and then others just don't attend church and they're kind of apathetic about God. So yeah, so it's good. But yeah, that is one of the things, and that's one of the areas that I will hopefully would do some work in. Um, what do we do in our community to replace the social and communal aspects of church? Because that's a big part of it. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think I read an article recently where there are a lot of people who are only attending church for the social and communal part of it. Like they don't believe in God, or it's not a huge part of their life. It's not important. The afterlife, heaven and hell, all this stuff is not important to them. But they can't leave because of the social aspect of it. And those of us in the community out there that have kids, that's even harder. Again, because most churches, for the most part, churches will provide a place of safety for our kids to come together and have a good time and enjoy themselves, and as safe as a place can be. It's not perfect. Obviously, we know that, but a lot of people feel safe having their kids at the church and associated with other like-minded kids. So yeah, so that is a difficult one. Something that those of us in the space of non-belief, non-believers, there's something that we have to wrestle with as to what do we do, how do we replace that. So that's a good one. Thank you, Texas guys, for that. Uh, I wanted to read you guys a list, and again, this information cited from I think this was a Pew Research study as well. Um, uh, uh, five five reasons why Black millennials are leaving the church. And so I think this is important because again, this is something those of you who are millennials, Generation Z or younger, or people who may have kids that are in those in that area. Uh, Number one reason, it's not number one in order, it's just the first one. They're leaving the church because the church is judgmental and unaccepting. Um, Being at a large um, institution like Georgia State, where I attend school at now, I've been around a lot of undergrads. It is extremely diverse. And when I say diverse, I'm just not talking about racial diversity, but I'm talking about diversity in sexual identity, sexual orientation, extremely. And so a lot of these young people are saying, my friend is gay, my friend is bi, my friend is trans, my friend is whatever. And the church consistently preaches against them, their lifestyle, who they are, and that is not acceptable to me. So a lot of the kids, a lot of young people are like no go. Church is a no go for me because they are unaccepting of my friends or even myself because obviously there are people in the church who are trans or bi or gay or lesbian, and so they feel ostracized in the church. A second reason, a lot of these young people are now choosing traditional spiritual paths. They're now choosing traditional African practices. They're choosing other practices. They're trying things that my generation would have never thought about before. Um, and so I think it's a good thing because I think again it is a journey, and wherever it leads you, and it works for you, I personally have no problem with it. I talk all the time about my wife who is Buddhist now. She practices Buddhism. That here's a person who has gone from First part of her life being Muslim, and then the second part of like being Christian to now Buddhism. So a lot of people are trying other practices, other faith practices, and so that's the second reason why they're leaving the church. They're trying other spiritual practices or no practice at all. Third, and I think to me, this is for me, this is the most important one, is that they believe that the church is anti-intellectual, and they are closed-minded to new information. And so this here gets to the core of when people ask me why I'm no longer a believer, it has nothing to do with church hurt. It has nothing to do with I want to do my own thing. It has nothing to do with I want to sin. It has nothing to do. What it comes down to is that you, as the church body, as the Christian um, platform, Christianity or any other religion for that matter, has absolutely presented zero, zero empirical, objective, corroborated evidence that there is a God. Um, and so I made this comment in at a meeting I think earlier this week. We as African Americans ask for receipts, quote unquote receipts for everything except God. We ask for receipts for everything. Like you can't tell us anything without the proof. We want to see the proof. But when it comes to God, there is no empirical, non bias, non personal proof. Someone says I had an experience and that was enough for me, and everybody believes. We all have experiences, regardless of where you are, what your belief system is. We all have experiences. Trust me, you are not having an experience that someone else hasn't had before. Many people, and a lot of those people are part of other religions or no religions at all. You just happen to attribute it. You just happen to attribute your experience to your God. It's called confirmation bias. You believe or you want to believe, and you have an experience. You're like, yeah, see, that experience proves it. Well, you went into that experience already believing, for most people, that God already existed. And so something happened, and you just say, okay, because of that, yeah, that means God must be real. But there is no empirical evidence. So the anti-intellectual, you can't go into the real world and be competitive. And this is global. We are in a global world. You can't go out into the world and believe that the earth is 6 to 10,000 years old. You cannot. People will laugh at you. If you believe in the creation story, people outside of our community, intellects, will laugh at you. The Big Bang, natural selection, evolution is is the is the accepted uh, theory of how we got here right now. It is the scientifically accepted method of how we are or how we got here yet, and it is accepted across the world. It is not creation. That is not the accepted theory of how we got here. And so when we walk out of our house and we walk out of our churches and we go into the world to be competitive and we are spouting out this information about how God created the earth, the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day, and Adam and Eve story and all of that. If you are serious about that, then people are going to laugh at you because that's not the belief system that most of the world believes in. It's not. Even those people who may be religious in other world, from a scientific standpoint, they understand that those stories are just that they're stories. They are mythology. Absolutely. So yeah. And so the fourth one, um, their peers are missing. So think about it. The church right now is struggling with trying to keep young people in the church. They're struggling, especially the African American churches. They are struggling. Our young people are looking around at the way their parents and grandparents' lives have gone. They're looking at the struggles. They're looking at the amount of toxicity. They're looking at the trauma that their parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts have experienced. And the one constant is the church. And so they're putting two and two together. They're saying, listen, I want no part of that. The church, religion, Christianity, and God has done absolutely nothing for the collective, for my collective people. absolutely nothing but provided false hope. And so these young people are looking out and they're seeing their peers who may not look like them, but their peers and their colleagues enjoying basically what we would call heaven on earth. And they're wondering, why am I not? Why are we not enjoying that? And so they're choosing to go after those things, and they're leaving the church behind. And so when you don't have young people in the church, the few that you do have, they're looking around and saying, I'm going to this church and spending so much time in this church, but I'm around people who are one and two, maybe even three generations older than I am. I don't relate to these people. I want to be around my peers, and my peers are not in the church. My peers are no longer in the church. And so they're leaving for that matter, for that reason as well. Um, and then finally, the fifth reason is that the church has become apolitical, meaning that the church, especially the black church, a lot of them are refusing to take a political stand on social issues. Again, young people, they are involved in politics, they are involved in laws, social issues, and they want to believe that the church is supportive of those issues or push. I mean, we did it, 2 generations ago, a generation ago, 2 generations ago. The churches were extremely active, politically active, civil rights movement, all of that. But now you don't have that as much. The churches are kind of shying away from those issues, or at least that's what the young people are feeling. And so, for that reason, and those other reasons that we listed, these people are no longer going to church and becoming a part of the church. So again, this is relevant because as a community, in the generations to come, the years and the decades and the generations to come, we're going to be forced to deal with the fact that many of our people are no longer in church. And what's going on? How do we deal with that? How do we move? How do we operate with that? How do we deal with friendships and relationships with that? Are we going to still be critical of those in our community who are gay because we believe that the Bible talks against it, right? Are we going to still be critical of those who are non-believers because we want their souls saved, right? What about family members who become educated, decide that this is not the thing for me? We talked about at the very beginning, the small things. What's going to happen in a few years when we're all family sitting around at a dinner table, and someone wants to say grace, and someone else says, "No, I don't do that." Or you're going to be asked to say a prayer, and you say, "No, I don't believe in that." So what's going to happen with the family dynamic at that point? How are you going to be perceived? Um, and so how are we moving? At what point do we realize that it's really about the things that we can do to fix our communities? What's going to happen when we really become aware and stop giving all of this money to the churches and decide, hey, maybe we can take this money and do something else in the community, build rec centers or community centers or grocery stores or something that's going to really benefit the community. So how is the community going to change when we have to deal with all that? And so I like to believe that right now is an opportunity for us to look at those situations and what's coming up and say, so how do we move? Because right now, those of us we're sort of pioneers. Those of us who are non-believers are in the community, in the African American community, and are vocal about it. We're like pioneers, right? We're going to take all the abuse. Um, we're going to have to endure the abuse so that those that come after us don't have to endure the same abuse that we're dealing with right now. The name calling, the fact that people think that we're crazy, the I've even heard the anti-blackness, like if you are a non-believer, then that's not black. You've been around too many white people, so forth and so on. So those of us we're having to deal with that, but the community as a whole is going to have to reckon with that at some point, and I predict that is going to come sooner than later. Yeah, the society at large is quickly moving away from religion, and it is a fact that Black people are slow about that. We've been slow about a lot of things, but I definitely expect us. This is no surprise to me. We look at the stats that we are the most reluctant people to move away from religion, even though it's happening, but it's happening at a lot slower pace than it is for the rest of society. So we got about 6 minutes. Um, any comments, any questions that we want to address? Anybody out there? Neo, Texas, Adrian, anybody else that's out there? Uh, MES, any comments? How's this life? Those of you who are non-believers or on a journey or expressed your concern with faith or religion questions, how has your life changed? Has anything changed? I know outside of losing friends. What else? What about jobs? What about? And I'm married, happily married, been married for 17 years. But how's dating for those of you who are who are not believe? I was on a forum a while ago and someone came on talking about dating and how difficult it is to date if you're a non-believer, especially if you are a black man trying to date a black woman, because women are the first trait on their list of things that they want in a man is God fearing. And I don't even have to go into the whole stories of how many pastors have cheated on their wives, or how many God fearing men have cheated on their girlfriends or wives or whatever. So we haven't gone into that. But those of you who are single out there or dating, how's that happen? Even those of you who are married and maybe you decided that you didn't want to be a Christian anymore, or part of religious faith, or had questions about your faith, and your spouse, your significant other, was still extremely devout. How did that work? Um, I think I did a podcast with a gentleman a couple of months ago, and he experienced that. He was hosting the podcast, but he talked about how he started exploring, started his journey away from religion, and his wife was still a believer, and how he that it was difficult at first, but she, they stuck it out, stuck together. But I would think that that would be a difficult thing for people, especially people who are believers. But now looking at myself as a non-believer, if I if I was dating, it would be extremely hard because I wouldn't be as tolerant of someone who is always about God, God, Jesus, Jesus, going to church 3 or 4 days a week. If they went to church once a week, I would be fine with that. As long as they didn't try to convince me to go back or whatever, I probably could deal with that. But thankfully, I'm not in that situation. I won't be. My wife and I, we are great. So, Texas God says, at what point must one hide their beliefs in order to keep customers, jobs, etc.? When do we say bump that and live for ourselves? I think that depends on the individual. And then you know what? Sometimes we may be overblowing the situation. Maybe we're in a situation in a work environment where the people we work with or our potential clients or customers don't care about our non-belief. But that I think that depends on your situation. Some of it may depend on the age or the background of your clientele or your customers. You can almost tell by how people talk, where they are in relationship to religion and their faith. So yeah, I think it's an individual thing. I would be encouraging people to become open about their disbelief, if they think that it will impact their job and their livelihood. I want you to have a place to live. I want you to have food on your table. And I want you to be able to send your kids to school. Um, but yeah, but at some point, we need to move in the direction of not being ostracized for our disbelief. I was reading a newspaper. I still get the Freedom from Religion newspapers I think it's every month, every quarter, or whatever. And I was just reading about um, the state of Tennessee actually has a law on the books that if you are a non-believer, you cannot hold a public office. That if you it used to be they used to have it where if you were a minister you could hold public office because they didn't want that work to interfere with what they perceived to be more important work, which was saving souls. But they took that off the books, and so now you have people and clergy people who are now political, I guess, officers or whatever, or who are politicians. However, they still have a um a law on the book that forbids anyone who is a non-believer, don't believe in God, from holding a public office. So it's crazy. I only know of one um, openly atheist politician, federal at the federal level, I think. it may be more, but I do know him. I can't remember where he's from, but I know it's a guy, and I know he's one of the he may be the only one. If not, then definitely. So that's still a bridge that people in this space have to conquer. Would this country elect an openly atheist person? At this point, I certainly doubt it. But give it another couple of generations and let the silent generation, the baby boomers, kind of die out, and that'll leave us Generation X as the old people. The millennials and Generation Z and the people after them, I can see them elected an openly atheist or non-believer at some point for a public office. It's cool. What happened to religious freedom? Exactly. Well, it's the freedom to practice a to practice a religion and b practice a specific religion. So that's what the religious freedom is. So you don't have the freedom to not practice religion, and you don't have the freedom to practice certain religions, right? That's kind of how this country is, and it's crazy. And it's weird because if you follow what's going on in a lot of these states, some of the stuff is very close to what you will find in Middle East in Middle Eastern countries that are extremely Islamic. I mean, some of the stuff that you hear with these politicians in these individual states, especially in the southern states and in the Midwest, some of the laws that they want to enact, some of the things that they want to put in place is just really atrocious. Um, so again, this is important. The politic aspects of it, the social aspects of it, all of it is important. But it's something that we in this community we're going to have to deal with, bring it to the attention of the larger community that we are here. Those of us, whether you call yourself a skeptic or someone who's embarking on a journey, or those of us who are non-believers, who are full-blown atheists or agnostics, we are here. Our ranks are growing, and hopefully we will become more and more vocal. Um, and so we just ask for the same treatment that a believer would receive, given any particular situation. So, guys, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been awesome. Hopefully, we got some information. Oh, I always said I was going to leave you guys with a book. One of the books that I read in relationship to this subject, and I searched around because I wanted to. This was some years ago. I wanted to get the perspective of a black atheist, and it's been hard to find, especially in book form. There's some videos that you can pull up on YouTube. I mean, there's a lot more people out there who are open about it and they're speaking about it. But this particular book is called "Emancipation of a Black Atheist" by D.K. Evans. It's the Emancipation of a Black Atheist. I don't have the actual book because I got it on audio. I got it on Audible, and so I listened to the whole book a few years ago, but it's a great book. It's called The Emancipation of a Black Atheist by D.K. D as in dog, K as in Kimberly Evans, like Michael Evans from Good Times, like J.J. Evans from Good Times. So yeah, D.K. Evans, Emancipation of a Black Atheist. And I just wanted to kind of read about the perspective of someone who, relatively speaking, it came out early in this whole journey thing. So it was an awesome read, great guy. I'm not sure if he's written anything else, but I enjoyed that book on my Audible, so it was great. So again, guys, thank you. This has been awesome. Appreciate it. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. The channel is growing. It's growing a little slow, but I wanted to grow faster. But tell a friend. Glad to have you guys here. Send me any information, any ideas on topics that you want to talk about or hear about or have me discuss. So again, this has been wonderful. Enjoy your weekend. Everybody, Texas Goddess, Neo, Adrian, MES. Did I miss anybody else out there who at least made a comment? OG, thank you. Appreciate it. So you guys and everybody else who's on here but didn't make a comment, thank you so much. And those who uh, um, may listen to this later, You guys have a great rest of your week and an absolutely fabulous weekend. And I will see you in 2 weeks. See you.